To say that I was disappointed in the Thermaltake P3 as I started to plan out my loop would be a bit of an understatement. To be completely honest, this case honestly has problems. The fact that it supposedly supports a 420 and doesn't really, and the idea that it can support the weight of its own glass and really doesn't, kind of all leads me to not really liking this case all that much. This is where modding comes in, because, you know, we can fix most of these things. So, I did, and I kinda went a little overboard. So to be completely honest, I gave this case the works. I created a brand new mod that actually allows me to attach the radiator to the front. We did this by cutting up some right angle channel, which was aluminum, so I could actually use a hacksaw for it. You know, it ended up actually being pretty reasonably noised, so hopefully we didn't get too much of a noise complaint on that. Then of course it was a matter of drilling the appropriate holes, countersinking ever so slightly, taking a trip to Home Depot, getting the right hardware to actually mount it in there, and then test fitting the whole thing. Once we actually got the whole thing together, we decided to measure out the radiator and fan holes to make sure that we could actually attach the radiator to this thing directly. This could have been cleaner than the way that I did it, but it did work out pretty well, and we were able to actually get the radiator attached properly. We went ahead and we test fitted the whole thing, getting the radiator on the outside of the glass, which makes it so that you can have the glass and the radiator at the same time. One downside is, unfortunately, the way that the radiator faces, we're going to have to somehow make the tubes go around the outside of the case, and that might end up being a bit of a problem. But I do have everything there. And unfortunately, I also did not leave much room to channel cables through, which really is an oversight on my behalf. I should have come up with some way to actually run the cables discreetly behind everything, but unfortunately, I really did not think of that, and that would be my fault. We also previously, in another video, made some feet for it, and I actually added these little tiny white pieces to the bottom that will actually allow it to not scuff up anything. With that, we pretty much had everything fixed, except for one small problem. The paint. It started to rub off, and it was weird because honestly, like, it was rubbing off from the factory. So we decided to repaint the case. And that was a bad idea. It was a very bad idea. Something about the material on this case actually makes it very easy to rub paint off of it, and I'm not 100% sure. We did a pretty standard automotive primer, which is supposed to etch into metal. We then coated it with a pretty hefty coat of paint over the course of 3 or 4 coats. I think it was 4 coats, before flipping and moving things around, and we top coated it, and we still ended up with weird striations and patterns. To be completely honest though, I don't dislike the look. It has a nice weathered look to it, and honestly, as long as it doesn't continue to flake off, I will probably keep that style. The other problem is it was actually a lighter shade of gray than I thought it would have been. It was supposed to be a charcoal black, and when I think of charcoal black, I think the darkest black possible. But it's more of a charcoal gray, and that's definitely not what it said on the paint can when I bought it. So there were some definite shortcomings to this build, but I kind of like it. I'll be honest, like, there are some sticking points with it, but at the same time, it's actually fairly unique. The color looks pretty good, and against the black motherboard, it actually looks pretty great. We actually built a system in it just to see how it would look and how it would perform, and honestly, it wasn't too bad. The actual build process inside this case is actually pretty good, and with our modification, it actually looks really good. And it's going to perform once we get the liquid cooling loop in there. There is a huge sticking point though. The back of the case has absolutely no cable management, and this can be a bit of a problem. Personally, I'm not too sold on that idea, and it just adds another thing that if I had known when modding it, I would have actually fixed. Now, I could get a hold of some probably like stick-on Velcro strap area things to put in the case to make that a little bit less of an inconvenience, but still, it shouldn't be that way. A lot of things about this case are only really shortcomings because Thermaltake didn't think about them, and unfortunately, like, personally, I'm on the fence about keeping it. I did all this work, which is why I want to keep it. I like the idea of this case. But at the same time, if the cards align and it's not that expensive, there's a new version of this case coming out with a distro plate already built in and everything that I modded into it that I might end up switching to. Either way, I enjoyed modifying this case, and I'm glad I was able to add these features. But they really shouldn't have had to be features that I added. And honestly, that says a lot about it. Either way, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can leave a like, comment, subscribe. I do content like this all the time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Wolfie, out.